Seeing everybody here, why don't we go ahead and begin? If staff are ready, we'll go ahead and begin and welcome everyone to the San Bruno City Council regular meeting of June the 28th, 2022, calling the meeting to order. May I please have roll call?
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Here. I'm here too.
I apologize. Councilmember Salazar?
Here.
Vice Mayor Mason?
Here, thank you.
Mayor Rico Medina?
Here. Thank you, all present. If you would go ahead, we're going to go to item 3, Pledge of Allegiance. If those at home and my colleagues here and staff would go ahead and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we will move on to item 4, public comments for items that are not on the agenda. Individuals will be allowed up to 3 minutes. It is council's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and action where appropriate. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. If there are members of the public that wish to speak, if you could raise your virtual hand or come in via phone, and we will have you brought into the room by Lupita, and whenever you're ready.
First speaker is Paul Wapensky. Paul Wapensky, I will let you in. Okay, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Good evening. I listened to the previous meeting and I've got a recommendation. On the second economic development manager, since you're not able to get anybody to fill that position, whether they pay as low or whatever, how about providing a grant to some MBA students to develop the plan for you? We've got Berkeley, Stanford, San Jose State that are all, you recruit from. And this would benefit the students because they would be working on an MBA project and the city would get a plan that they could work with under the council's direction. And this would also help the city because if you can't get anybody to fill that job right now, at least you can work on ways to potentially fund that position in the future in future budgets. And you're also saving the city some money now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Gabe Holbert. Gabe, I will allow you into the room. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thanks so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Medina and honorable members of the San Bruno City Council. My name is Gabe Holbert, and I represent the Y Green Energy Fund, one of the leading property-assessed or PACE clean or financing energy companies in the state. We provide financing for energy and water conservation, seismic and wildfire resiliency improvements for homes and businesses voluntarily through their property taxes in over 325 California communities, including your neighbors, South San Francisco, Pacifica, Burlingame, Brisbane, Coma, San Mateo, San Francisco, and countless other Bay Area jurisdictions. Thank you for your time this evening. California property owners are facing a difficult reality. Historic droughts, wildfires, and blackouts are becoming increasingly frequent, even as the state and cities like San Bruno pass more aggressive legislation to attempt to stem our carbon emissions and convert our energy grid to primarily clean energy. That kind of dramatic shift can only happen if property owners have the access to the natural disaster and clean energy property improvements needed, but too often those property upgrades are out of reach with price tags in the tens of thousands of dollars. Therefore, alternatives to traditional property improvement financing are critical. PACE financing is one such program, a transformational public-private policy in place for over a decade that does not discriminate. Rather than monthly payments, property owners pay for the upgrades over time through an assessment added to their property tax bill with universal terms for every property owner and without the high variable interest rates and upfront cash required by most traditional financing options. Since AB 1284 was passed in 2018, the PACE industry has delivered best-in-class PACE financing with the highest standards of consumer protections in the country, including rigorous underwriting standards, financial disclosures, and verifying the ability to pay, among other measures. PACE delivers results not only for property owners, but for local economies as well, especially the businesses that step up to provide these improvements. The impact to date is the injection of over $7.3 billion worth of private capital into local communities, creating over 120,000 local jobs and generating more than $15 billion in local economic activity. Whitegreen's commercial PACE program has unique features to serve the small to medium-sized business market that often have barriers to traditional methods of financing. With the project minimum of $5,000 and a retroactive financing option on previously completed PACE-approved projects. To date, our projects in the other San Mateo County jurisdictions we operate in have saved over 19 million gallons of water, 8.9 million kilowatt hours, and abated 3,148 metric tons of carbon with zero cost or legal risk to these localities. These statistics are a testament to the effective public policy tool PACE is to leverage private capital for public good. There's not a more beneficial program for your community to make available at no cost to the government and with so many advantages. Having a competitive market for PACE is the only way to ensure the best outcome for property owners and the environment. So we encourage you to approve the GSFA PACE program at San Bruno at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
There are no other hands raised.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 5, announcements, presentations. There is one. It is an announcement that during the upcoming 4th of July holiday season, please remember to be safe and respectful of neighbors. If you use or possess illegal fireworks or improperly use safe and sane fireworks in San Bruno, you will, not may, will be cited, you will be fined and cited $1,000 for that action. With that, let's move on to item 6, which is consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implemented as an earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested. There are items A, B, C, and D. Are there any items that wish to be pulled for a separate vote? Under that, with item D being having a comment from Councilmember Medina, are there any other items? Seeing none, then we will move to item D, adopt resolution approving agreement between the City of San Bruno and the Miscellaneous Bargaining Unit and authorizing execution by the City Manager. Councilmember Medina.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's been customary for me to comment on these contracts that we have been approving, and thank everyone involved for their hard work. It's great to have another contract going forward for 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other public comments on the consent calendar?
No hands are raised.
Thank you. With that, back to council for action, please.
Through the mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the items on consent.
I'll second.
Motion seconded. Hamilton Salazar, roll call, please.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mason?
Aye.
Mayor Rico Medina?
Aye. Consent calendar passes 5-0. Now we'll move on to item 7, which is our study session for this evening.
Item 7A, conduct a study session regarding proposed city charter and commercial real property transfer tax.
I will turn this now over to our city manager, Javon Grogan.
Thank you, Mayor Medina, members of the City Council, Javon Grogan, City Manager. I am here to jointly provide a presentation for our study session on the proposed city charter and commercial real property transfer tax. I will be joined in this presentation by Interim City Attorney Tricia Ortiz, who is to my right and will join us shortly. Our objective for tonight's study session is that we'll provide a little background, a little bit of the why we are here and how we got here. We'll provide a recap on the establishment of the city charter. We'll provide information on the definition of commercial property, discuss potential tax rates, but also respond to questions from the City Council that were posed at your first public hearing on June 7th. We will discuss the timeline and then have council discussion and then eventually action to place the charter on the ballot, not necessary today at this study session. So a little bit of background. So on October 26th of last year, the City Council had a study session where you discussed several potential ballot options for the upcoming November 22 ballot. One of those was potentially establishing a city charter that had an integral commercial property transfer tax as a combined measure. And the City Council provided direction to staff to analyze that option and return to you with policy options in time for council to place a measure on the ballot for voters to consider should you desire to do so. And we have had a number of meetings to that regard and are here today in another study session on that topic. But really, that wasn't the beginning of why the city started to look at a potential charter or a commercial property transfer tax. And really the foundation of that is our comprehensive fiscal sustainability project that we launched as a city in 2019. It's a project that seeks to improve the city's fiscal condition so that we have sufficient ongoing and annual funds to provide those services that we know our residents need, deserve, as well as maintain our infrastructure. And as we saw in our last meeting just a few moments ago, when we were discussing our budget for the next fiscal year, there are no easy decisions in Bruno with regard to the budget. We have for decades had to make decisions on knowing that there are items that the city needs to fund, but not having the revenue to fund them. And so we embarked on this comprehensive project that remains active. And important to note, the city has had significant success and implemented numerous cost control measures, revenue enhancements, and cost shifts where we've shifted funds from the general fund to either a new revenue source or a more sustainable funding source. And in your staff report, a number of those are mentioned. One of the examples of cost shifting is we went to the federal court with regard to the PG&E bankruptcy. PG&E had community service hours to provide, and we were successful in converting those community service hours into $3 million so that we can do wildfire mitigation in Crestmore Canyon, which we know is our most significant wildfire danger in the city. And so we were able to shift that unfunded financial burden from the general fund to a new funding source. The City Council has directed that we place Measure G on the ballot, a half-cent sales tax that, as we saw, is now bringing in $3.8 million, significant money for roads and other improvements. We placed a hotel tax, an additional TOT, transient occupancy tax, on the ballot that increased our tax from 12% to 14%, recovering another half $500,000. We did a Walmart.com sales tax participation agreement that was projected to bring in $4 million and is bringing in a little bit more. We've implemented numerous operational budget reductions, and as we talked about just at our prior meeting, unfortunately, we have not even been able to restore all of the positions that were reduced. We've obtained grants for our Spyglass Stormwater Improvement Project. The City Council has partnered with the county and received Measure K grants for both for Posey Park. We recently had the Giants Community Foundation renovate Greenberg Field. But despite all the successful efforts, and I just listed a few, and there's a longer laundry list in the staff report, the financial challenges that face San Bruno remain significant. And that's true both on a ongoing basis for the revenue we need to operate the city with the appropriate personnel and maintenance budget to maintain our medians, for example, as well as the money we need to replace and maintain critical infrastructure. So let's talk a little bit about these two, but really just at a high level. But I really want to note that it's important that we recognize that San Bruno has a revenue problem. We don't have an expenditure problem. Our revenue per capita as shown here amongst our peer group is the second lowest, second only to Daly City, a city with more than double our population. So that skews their per capita number. And so that, as we've talked about before, is not something that can be changed overnight. It is a factor of being a predominantly residential community that has not had significant commercial development over the last 40 years. And so we are, as you know, making significant strides and steps on the economic development front with some of our larger parcels, Bay Hill, Sky Park, and Tan Fran. But getting our per capita revenue to be on par with our peer cities is a challenge. And as we've talked about, there's no silver bullet solution. It's you don't turn a cruise ship on a dime. Next, important, just at another high level, just to talk about our infrastructure needs. We can have a exhaustive presentation on the city's infrastructure challenges, and we've seen this chart in a prior presentation, but for our residents that are watching this presentation, it's important to note that the city analyzed the cost of infrastructure that we need to improve over the next 20 years when the city council implemented development impact fees to ensure that new development pay their fair share for city infrastructure, public safety, utilities, transportation. And so this chart is from that February 2019 study. And at a high level, what it shows is that the cost of improvements that this city needs to make over the next 20 years totals more than $457 million. And development, and through the council's action, development will pay their fair share. But they cannot pay all, it is not legal for them to pay more than their fair share. And so the development impact fee portion that's allocated to the new development that's coming is $146 million. It leaves a whopping $310 million that needs to be funded from other sources. So all of the successful efforts that we've had with the Comprehensive Fiscal Sustainability Project get us there, but are nowhere near coming to the amount of funds that we need. And so looking at the establishment of a charter city and to provide the city with the ability to impose a commercial property transfer tax is just one of the many mechanisms. So that's really why we're having this discussion. And so it's important to note that in California, there are two types of cities. There are general law cities and charter cities. And what is the main difference? Well, only charter cities can impose a real property transfer tax, and there are some other differences that we'll talk about the city's ability to manage its municipal affairs. The city council can draft a charter. It requires 2 public hearings and a vote of the people and a statewide general election. And so that is every 2 years. And so if we are looking to place in options before the voters to develop a city charter, we need to do that in an even year. And so November 22 is fast approaching, and with council's direction last year, that is what we've been marching toward, providing that information so the city council can make an informed decision. And so on March 29th, we met on this item, and the council directed staff to develop what's called a simple charter, really providing the city council with the powers to implement a commercial property transfer tax. And so there are a number of features of a commercial property transfer tax, and we'll go through just a few here. It's important to note that a commercial property transfer tax is paid upon sale of a property. The payment of that tax can be negotiated between a buyer and the seller. And then there are key items for discussion that we've talked about is really how do you define commercial? Are there residential property exclusions? and then what properties are exempt and de-exempted at a certain dollar threshold. And through our prior presentations, we've grappled with this question, and so I'll just go through it. I know the City Council has seen this before, but definition of commercial. So commercial property is defined in our draft charter as commercial property or will be defined in the ordinance should council adopt it as commercial property, for example, a office building, hotel, or retail structure, a industrial property, a warehouse or manufacturing building, commercial, residential, or multifamily, and so a rental complex, a planned unit development for residential developers or purchase or vacant land. And so staff developed a simulation analysis, and with that definition, important to note that we have pegged commercial property as 5 units or greater, and we've talked a lot about that. And so what did that property tax simulation reveal? And so we took a look at 21 cities across the Bay Area that have a commercial, a transfer tax. Some cities have it on commercial or residential. What is within the proposed charter for the City Council to consider is only on commercial property. We estimated San Bruno revenue based on the actual sales that have occurred in San Bruno over the last 5 years. And what that revealed is that should San Bruno have had a commercial property transfer tax on any given year over the last 5 years, the city would have generated $61,000 on a low year to $2.7 million on a high, but really an average of approximately $1 million and depending on the rate structure. And so the rate surveyed in various cities, some cities have a simple structure where it's a 1%, others have it tiered based on the sales price. And the simple percentage raised from 0.055% to 1.3%. So we talked a lot about the analysis that was conducted before, but in summary, staff is recommending a 1% tax rate with the structure that applies to commercial properties and only residential properties that are 5 units or more. Very explicitly, this means that any single family home, condo, or fourplex buildings would be exempt from paying this commercial property transfer tax. The estimated revenue at the 1% rate, while it will fluctuate annually based on actual sales, we estimate at $1 million annually, again, to go towards the critical financial needs of the organization. And then we break that down by the amount that is likely to be generated by commercial residential properties and then all other types of commercial properties. And so on June 7th, your first public hearing, the City Council asked a number of questions. One thing, you requested additional public engagement, recognizing that a city charter is a significant change for the organization. It will change our governance model. And you asked for more information on the powers of a charter city. And so just to note, in response to the City Council's request for additional public engagement, we scheduled this study session, and so state law requires that you have 2 public hearings, but to have additional engagement, we squeezed in another study session between those 2 public hearings, and so that is today on June 28th. We developed and implemented a citywide mailer that talked about the commercial property transfer tax and the potential city charter, and mailed that to every mailing address, both residential and businesses within San Bruno, to do that step further and make sure that we hit every property in San Bruno. We created a dedicated website to convey information on the proposed charter and the transfer tax. That includes all prior staff reports, presentations, as well as Zoom links for not just this meeting, but the upcoming City Council meetings. And that web address is our normal city website at www.sanbruno.ca.gov/chartercity. And we also developed a series of social media posts, and just today, the city manager's June e-newsletter had an article on the city charter. Next, the City Council, as I stated before, asked questions on limiting the City Council's powers. There was a robust discussion about that on June 7th. And so within the body of your staff report, we provide the following. Should the City Council want to further limit its powers as a charter city, subject to voter approval, of course, to only those powers that the city currently may exercise as a general law city, of course, aside from the implementation of a commercial property transfer tax, because we have to become a charter city to do that. It can direct staff to amend the draft charter to include a provision similar to the following. This charter shall restrict the city from exercising only those rights, powers, and authority granted under the general laws of the state of California, with the exception of the power to impose a tax on the conveyance of real property as provided in Article 3, and that would be Article 3 of the charter. And so that's in response to council's questions to say, I think there were comments of, I might be okay with putting the question before voters, but I have some concerns on what additional powers we may be conveying to future city councils. And so wanted to clarify that there could be a mechanism to limit that. And now I will turn it over to our interim city attorney to go through a number of discussions with regard to powers of the city charter.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Ortiz, interim city attorney. And as the city manager mentioned, I am here to address questions that came up last time about how a charter city exercises its powers and what it means to be a charter city. So once a charter city has the power to regulate all municipal affairs. And those municipal affairs are regulated pursuant to limits on by the city's charter, the California Constitution, and the U.S. Constitution. So another way to say this is once the city becomes a charter city and the voters adopt the charter acts as a limit on the city's power over municipal affairs. And for all the municipal affairs that aren't limited by the charter, the U.S. Constitution, or the California Constitution, the city council can regulate those municipal affairs by adopting a resolution, an ordinance, or otherwise taking action to regulate. And an example of a charter limit to the city's powers is found in your current draft charter, which says that the charter city shall pay prevailing wage. So even though charter city is not obligated to pay prevailing wage that has been determined to be a municipal affair, the charter says, the one that's being considered, says that the city must pay prevailing wage. And that means the city council could not take an action in the future to change that without amending the charter. And an example of the state constitutional provision that limits the exercise of a charter city's power is the significant revenue raising limitations that are found in Propositions 218, 13, and 26. So as part of the discussion last time, there were a few questions about, well, what does it mean to be a charter city and our taxing powers? And generally, charter cities and general law cities have the same powers to impose taxes, with one notable exception, and that is the real estate transfer tax that Javon just discussed. A charter city may impose it, and a general law city may not. But all cities, whether general law or charter, are still constrained by the Constitution and Propositions 13 to 18 and 26 when it comes to raising revenues. So as relevant here, the most notable requirement of these constitutional provisions is that any action to impose, increase, or extend a tax requires voter approval. So it's not enough to just become a charter city. You would also have to have your voters approve a tax. And once the voters approve the tax and the tax ordinance as described by Javon, if that ordinance specified that a commercial property included residential properties with 5 or more units, the city council could not come back and amend that to be 3 or more units, because that would be an action to increase the tax or impose the tax on people who weren't subject to the tax before. That would require going back to the voters to amend the tax. So what is a municipal affair? And there was a discussion of, can we just list out all the municipal affairs? The Constitution does not define what a municipal affair is, and we cannot list all of the municipal affairs because they're actually determined on a case-by-case basis. But there are some municipal affairs that are just generally known and classic examples of what charter cities can and do regulate. The first being a public contracts. A charter city is subject to the public contracts code unless it provides that the code does not apply. Prevailing wages. Again, a charter city is not required to pay prevailing wages. Your charter provides that, your draft charter provides that the city will. But even for charter cities that have chosen not to pay prevailing wages, there's been significant legislation that imposes consequences for failing to pay prevailing wage. Another example of a municipal affair is the process of issuing bonds. Now, again, this is significantly constrained by California constitutional provisions. For instance, a city cannot exceed the constitutional debt limit, so you couldn't really use your charter city powers to exceed that. But you could use your charter cities to come up with a procedural ordinance for how you approve bonds. And then similarly, assessments. Again, Proposition 218 significantly limits how a city can impose assessments. It requires a notice public hearing. It requires an assessment balloting procedure, and it limits the amount of assessments that can be imposed. However, a charter city could establish its own process for considering assessments. And so then there's the list of things that are not municipal affairs. And this is a list of common statewide concerns that charter cities cannot regulate: educational school systems, traffic and vehicle regulation, tort claims, Brown Act, employee organization rules, CEQA, Public Records Act, annexations, the exercise of the powers of eminent domain, and licensing members of a trade or profession. So with that, that's an overview of the powers of a charter city, and I will turn it back over to the city manager.
So just a quick recap of our timeline. We have the first public hearing on June 7th. We're here this evening for a study session. The second public hearing is scheduled for July 12th at your 7 p.m. meeting. 30 days must elapse between the second public hearing and when the item is on the city council agenda for decision. And so that is currently calendared for August 3rd. And as we know, there is a deadline that all cities have to submit ballot measures to the county elections office by August 12th. And so your action, either in support of this on August 3rd, will allow us to do that. If you choose not to, we don't have to worry of that deadline. And so that concludes our presentation for today. The next steps really are for today: city council questions on the presentation, public comment, and then city council discussions in any direction that you want to provide on the charter that would have an integral property tax measure. But no formal action scheduled for tonight, really discussion, public engagement, feedback. Thank you.
Thank you to both city manager and city attorney for your presentation this evening. With that, I'd like to go with this process that it is for questions on the presentation, comments, but questions on the presentation, then we'll move to the public. This is a study session, so we'll ask for any input, and we'll bring it back to council. So first, I'd like to start with Councilmember Hamilton, please.
Thank you. I just have one question. I guess this would be for the interim city attorney. First of all, thank you for drafting the provision on that we showed on slide 13. I have one question about potentially changing it just slightly to make things crystal clear as to what the intention of the charter is. Right now it reads, this charter shall restrict the city to exercising only those rights, powers, and authority granted under the general laws of the state of California, with the exception of the power to impose a tax on the conveyance of real property as provided in Article 3. Now I understand that Article 3 will have all of the detail about exactly what the transfer tax can apply to, what it can't apply to, all of that. But would it be possible to just add the word commercial in there and say to impose a tax on the conveyance of real commercial property as provided in Article 3, just to make it crystal clear for folks who may not follow through all the detail and go through all the detail in Article 3. I think you're on mute.
Interim city attorney, yes, you guys are on mute.
Okay, all of that is possible, yes, and a few things I want to clarify. The provision that we drafted was intended to give you a sense of how it could be drafted. There will be a lot of, I think, conforming changes throughout the charter to make sure it very accurately does, if that's the direction the city council goes, that it very accurately it provides for that limitation. And then the other clarification is that the charter will only establish authority to impose a real estate transfer tax, and we say commercial real estate transfer tax, but all of the specifics will be in an ordinance that's approved by the voters. So it won't be actually in the charter, but in a separate ordinance. Again, neither of those could be changed without going back to the voters to make any modifications at all.
Thank you.
Other questions on presentation from colleagues at this time? Seeing no hands, let's go to the public and see if there's any questions or comments from the public on this item.
Okay, I see a hand up. Paul Lipensky. Paul Lipensky, let me bring you into the room. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I just, a couple days ago, I got my community update with this proposal, and I just got a marketing comment. It appears that the only reason we're going to try to adopt a city charter is so we can pass this transfer tax. And I think from a marketing perspective, you should list all the other benefits or non-benefits of a charter city so that people who aren't following this closely don't think the only reason we're doing this is to get more money out of commercial properties, because I think there are more benefits to a charter city than just this. And I think you should state that out there on the mailers if you have any more mailers in the future. That's all I have.
Thank you for your comments.
I am not seeing any other hands up.
I see another hand.
I see one more hand up. Bruce Ehrman. Bruce Ehrman, I will let you into the room. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, whenever you're ready.
Excellent. I was wondering if either the acting city attorney or the staff could give us some examples of other types of charter cities that haven't imposed a restriction to only general city functions. What kinds of other changes they've allowed their city councils to perform. The reason I say that is that while it's good to reassure our city residents that our city council is not going to make drastic changes without public engagement, etc., and to limit government, it kind of decreases the ability to act quickly when different kinds of challenges come across. And so I'm not sure we do want to limit our city council to only those general city functions. And so I was wondering if there were some example of things that have been done that therefore make our city charter want to limit itself to only general city functions plus the commercial transfer tax. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next speaker, please.
I do not see any other hands raised.
Thank you very much. We'll bring it back to council if wish to have further questions and or someone would like to comment on the speakers and council members. Vice Mayor Mason, first, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank staff for bringing this back and answering the questions that were posed at the last meeting, and for scheduling this as a regularly scheduled meeting. So thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton.
I was hoping that staff could address Mr. Ehrman's question, because that's a good one, regarding, you know, if we weren't to restrict us to general law explicitly in the charter, what other types of things would the council be prepared to do? And I will state before asking the question that the reason we did this, that we asked for this provision, was in the first public hearing that we had on this, there was concern from council members of the possibility of future councils exploiting some of those extra powers in ways that was not intended. And the vision that we talked about and why we some of us asked for that particular provision was to make it very, very clear that the purpose, the reason that why we're doing this at this time is to give us the ability to introduce this commercial property transfer tax. And if there were other items and other things that we would want to do in the future, that would require us to go back to the voters. So, but without this provision, what other types of things, as Mr. Ehrman asked, would the city be able to do without going back to the voters?
Interim City Attorney.
Well, Mayor Medina and Councilmember Hamilton, I think I'm understanding your question that if it was just a normal, a more typical, simple charter, what could the city regulate without going back to the voters?
Correct.
And it would be the municipal affairs examples that I provided, which are public contracting or some aspects of elections, and it would be the procedures for adopting for issuing bonds, and prevailing wages, and yeah, so that's kind of an example. But municipal affairs is not there's not a finite list. It can be many different things, and as the member of the public was mentioning, cities who have reserved their power to regulate municipal affairs can act very quickly and nimbly to regulate those affairs, and it might be something much more, and it's typically going to be something more procedural in how you implement different policies in the city. It's not going to be something significant like public meetings and how you run those, because that's governed by the Brown Act, and your current charter already eliminates the ability to impose to not pay prevailing wages.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So I think to provide a more complete answer to Mr. Ehrman, the reason that we added this provision wasn't to, you know, bog things down or anything like that. It was to, because these municipal affairs are not clearly defined, they're generally defined. We wanted to make it very, very clear to, because this is, you know, if we're, you know, successful in getting this on the ballot, it's going to be up to the voters to decide upon this. We wanted to make it very, very clear what specific powers we are asking the voters for, and it's one power. Well, two if you count the prevailing wage, but we have that anyway. But it's only one new power, and that is to pass this, and that is to implement this commercial property transfer tax. There was concern that I've heard from members of the public and some of my colleagues that this would be a quote unquote slippery slope in you know, granting the council with, you know, if we are able to do this now, you know, a future council could potentially do some other things that we wouldn't want without having to go back to the voters. And we wanted to put this provision in there to make sure that that is not going to happen. Thank you.
Councilmember Medina.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Medina. And if I could add a little bit more to that, to Councilman Hamilton's comment there is when we first started talking about the charter city, we were thinking of having it very, very simple and looking at the benefits of being able to tax commercial property. And we hit a little turbulence as we had in our first study session in like, well, future councils could do other things, and it's like, no. What other future councils try to do is up to them. What we're trying to do right now is to raise revenue for our city that impacts the least amount of residents. And we all know, and I think we all agree, that our city doesn't have the revenues to provide the level of service that we all want. We heard from our police department, our chief of police, that we don't have the average number of police officers for a city of our size. If we are able to pass this with the voters, we will be able to increase the police department and other councils to decide what to do with the money in the future. But as of right now, that's something that I'm interested in doing. And I'm sure other colleagues could have their say on it. But without those revenues, we can't do any more. It's absolutely clear that earlier tonight, the council passed the budget of the base budget. And there's much more that we need to do, just that we don't have the revenues. And this is one way, very, very specific, that we can increase the revenues. So I want to thank everyone for the work on this. I thank City Attorney Ortiz for putting together something really, really clear that limits what we're trying to do here. And I'm hoping that we have the support of our residents when it comes down to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Salazar.
I wanted to also chime in with the Vice Mayor's comments in thanking staff for the additional outreach, the schedule of additional meetings, and the putting up of the webpage. I did have one request, though, in that I felt that the webpage that was put up was a little lacking in content, and it really didn't contain much more than what was on the mailer that went out. And you know, there is a lot more material that was made available through the presentations that we've seen so far, and perhaps some of that would be appropriate to post there as well, including the, I think there's a comparison that came from the League of Cities that could be helpful in helping residents understand the differences.
City Manager, please.
Sure. Absolutely, Councilmember Salazar. All of that information is there as links to prior staff reports towards the bottom of the page, but what we'll do is we'll take a look at it and see is there a way to elevate and bring that to more so that the website is a little bit more user-friendly and easier to find. We'll do.
Real quick for me, I know it's questions I have received is, you know, why is it, if it's commercial, have it commercial. If it's 5 units, 6 units, that's considered housing. The definition seems contradictory. It just escaped me the other element that I wanted to say, and I apologize. But that was it. I just can't remember the other. I'm sorry. It just slipped out of the my mind. So I apologize. So I guess what it happens as we get over here. So with that, is there anything else from my colleagues? Councilmember Hamilton.
I just want to bring up one other point regarding you know, some of the concerns that I've heard from residents that weren't brought up tonight, but I just want to make sure that anyone watching who may have similar concerns think about a few things. Being a charter city is not a bizarre and out there thing that would make us unique in California. There are many dozens of charter cities in California, all across the state, including some of our neighbors. Closer to us, Petaluma, Mountain View, Palo Alto. But the example I want to highlight is the closest example to us, which would be San Mateo. So one of the concerns that I've heard from some residents would be that the implementation of such a tax would have a chilling effect on development and discourage people from investing in properties in San Bruno. And that is not proven to be true at all in any of these cities, and especially not in San Mateo. If anyone's visited San Mateo recently, they've been doing quite well in that area and developing whole new neighborhoods and all of that. And they have they are a charter city, and they have a commercial property transfer tax. So I wanted to bring that up as another point for folks who may have questions about the charter city and the commercial property transfer tax. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think thank you, Councilmember. What was on the mind was that what I've heard as well is, so you want to become a charter city so you can impose a tax, because you can't do it without in a general law state, as well as also a charter city gives that opportunity to change the way the voting is. For example, the way it is conducted today to maybe a ranked choicing or something else. Not that doesn't have to be voted on, but that gives that latitude to explore that option. That's it for me. So I appreciate staff. Thank you, colleagues, for your questions and thoughts. And if there is nothing else, we will conclude item 7, which was the study session, and we will move on to item 8, which is our public hearing for the evening. And I'm going to apologize in advance to Lapita.
Thank you. Item 8A, hold a public hearing and take the following actions to approve the Glenview Terrace residential subdivision project. Adopt a resolution approving the initial study, mitigated negative declaration, and mitigation monitoring and reporting program. Pursuant to CEQA guidelines, section 15074, and adopt a resolution amending the general planned land use designation for APN 019-042-170 from low density residential to medium density residential, and introduce, read by title only, and waive further reading of an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance to rezone APN 019-042-170 from low density residential R1 to planned development PD, and amend an existing PD district for APNs 019-042-150 and 019-042-160 to conform to the proposed project and approve a development plan pursuant to sections 12.96.020 and 12.96.190.k and Chapter 12.136 of the San Bruno Municipal Code, and adopt a resolution approving a vesting tentative tract map. Adopt a resolution approving a planned development permit and an architectural review permit to allow the construction of 29 single-family homes at the corner of San Bruno and Glenview Drive, pursuant to sections 12.96.190 and 12.108.010 of the San Bruno Municipal Code, and pursuant to Chapter 12.38 of the San Bruno Municipal Code, and adopt a resolution approving an affordable housing plan pursuant to Chapter 12.230 of the San Bruno Municipal Code, and adopt a resolution authorizing a new four-way stop at the intersection of San Bruno Avenue West and Glenview Drive, and introduce, read by title only, and waive further reading of an ordinance approving a development agreement pursuant to City Resolution 1986-77.
Thank you very, very much. It's greatly appreciated. With that, I would like to turn it over to City Hall, and I see Director Pamela Wu at the podium.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. I think we won the longest title for tonight. So with that, we'll start introducing the Glenview Terrace 29 lot subdivision development to City Council. My name is Pamela Wu, Community Economic Development Director. With me is Michael Smith, Senior Planner and also the Project Planner for this project. He will provide you a more detailed overview of the project following my presentation. See if I can move this thing along. If not, mouse. Okay, so as Levita has mentioned, a mouthful of recommended actions for Council to take actions tonight. We are asking Council to consider the initial study and D to amend the general plan, to introduce, read, and waive the first reading of an ordinance amendment for the PD zoning, and also to adopt a resolution approving the vesting tentative map, to approve a PD permit, an architectural review permit, approve a affordable housing plan, and also to review and approve a four-way stop at the intersection of San Bruno and Glenview Drive, and finally to introduce and read, basically approve the development agreement for the project. To provide you with a little background on the project, let's start with where they are. So this is an overview of the city. Everyone's familiar with where we are. The red circle represents the location of this project site. It's to the west side of the city, surrounded by San Bruno Avenue, Glenview, and also adjacent to Crestmore Canyon. The site, the address is 2880 and 2890 San Bruno Avenue. This formerly was a gas station with service building on top of it, and also 850 Glenview, where there is still currently a church building that's proposed to be demolished. The project site comprises about 3.28 acres in size and a total of 3 different lots. Back in 2006, Council approved a project of 16 townhomes at only a portion of this 3.28 acre site, but the project was never completed and construction never took place. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Smith to walk you through the details of this project. Go, Michael.
Good evening, Mayor Bedita and council members. Michael Smith, Planning Department staff. Thank you, Pamela, for the introduction. So the project itself includes a demolition of the existing on-site structures. As Pamela said, it's a church and a parsonage. That's at 850 Glenview Drive. and there'll be redevelopment of the entire 3.28 acres project site into 29 residential lots, and in addition to 6 utility and open space lots. Streets within the development will be a minimum of 22 feet wide. Excuse me. Sorry, there we go. So you guys can stick with me there. Okay, so the 6 utility and open space lots will be utilized for access, utility easements, storm drain improvements, open space purposes, and will be owned and maintained by the homeowners association for this development. The proposed homes within the development will be 2 stories over the street, with 6 homes along the eastern edge of that site adjacent to canyon, having walkout basements at the rear due to the slope. The homes range in size from about 1,727 square feet all the way up to 2,600 square feet of habitable space, with an average size of about 2,020 square feet. Homes would have 3 to 4 bedrooms each, and each home would have a 2-car garage of 420 square feet. Side setbacks would be a minimum of 4 feet. Front setbacks would be 15 feet measured through the front porches. And then proposed lot sizes range in size from 2,339 square feet to 4,133 square feet, with an average lot size of a little over 3,000 square feet. And the FAR within the development ranges around 0.80. And then the driveways themselves are 20 feet in depth, 18 to 20 feet in depth, and would accommodate 2 additional cars off street. So the 3 existing lots that you see on the parcel map would be merged into one development site and then re-subdivided into the 29 single-family home sites and the public lots as well. This map that you have on the overhead shows you kind of what the development's going to look like. So in the corners in magenta, you see the 2 stormwater areas, stormwater capture areas. In the cayenne kind of color, you see the blue color is the amenity space. There's some park benches and some barbecue areas. And then to the east in this photo or in this image is the canyon. And so that's going to be open space. It will remain open. And then that dark area you see right there is the defensible open space against the canyon. So the project, as you can see, also has a number of streets. Those are privately maintained streets. There will be 19 guest parking spaces, and those are highlighted in yellow for you to see there. As far as how it would affect the street parking on Glenview Drive, so currently in the image to the left, there are 16 parking spaces on the street on Glenview, and then with the proposal, there would be 18, so that's an increase of 2 spaces. Parking would not be allowed on the subdivision streets themselves, so only within the guest parking areas. So here we have the different models that are being proposed. So they come in 3 basic styles: the Craftsman, the Colonial, and the Mediterranean styles. And there's 10 different floor plans in total, but within those 3 styles, there's 4 different exterior color palettes, and so for a total of 12 different overall designs. In addition to that, the homes, because they are against the canyon itself, Crestmore Canyon, they are required to be built up to WUI standards. That's the Wildland Urban Interface standards, and that's to protect against fire hardening. And then, as I said before, when we looked at the overhead of the site, there is a 30-foot defensible space behind the homes adjacent to the canyon, and that space would be required to be maintained by the HOA. The project is also subject to the city's affordable housing requirement. It's a 15% affordability requirement. Those homes would be located on site. And so that's a total of 4 homes, as you can see on the image. and they are distributed through the development by size and by type. And they would be affordable and deed restricted for 45 years, and there would be an agreement attached to the final map approval, and that would be the affordable housing agreement, so you would see that at a later date. In addition to the improvements actually on site, there's proposed to be improvements to the intersection of Glenview Drive and San Bruno Avenue West. There's new stop signs that are being proposed. Those stop signs would be LED lit, so they'd be high visibility. And then there would also be high visibility crosswalk striping, new crosswalk striping at that intersection. And new curb ramps as well. And a little bit about this. So the city did do a signal warrant to determine whether or not this intersection met the requirements for a new signalized intersection, because that is something that the community really wanted to see. And I'll go into that a little bit later. But through that analysis, it showed that there's not enough traffic on the two side streets to warrant the signal. But we did do a stop warrant as well. And so that's why we're moving forward with a stop warrant. And that'll help out the community quite a bit, in that it'll make it easier for traffic coming into San Bruno Avenue from Glenview Drive. It'll give them space and time to get out into the flow of traffic by stopping the traffic on San Bruno Avenue. And then also for people who aren't in vehicles, it'll facilitate them getting across the intersection as well. So an important piece of the project is the development agreement that's associated. It includes a payment to the city of $400,000. That would be done in two different payments. Each payment for $200,000 each. One due at first building permit issuance, and the second one due at building permit issuance for the 10th home. There's a 4-year term for this development agreement, and it also includes sales tax point of sale designation. And this is on top of the already required development impact fees, which are due at the first building permit issuance. And as you can see there, that is in the amount of $855,000 plus. So a little bit about the environmental review that we did for the project. So the project we did an initial study and a mitigated neg deck for the project that found impacts or potential impacts in the areas of air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, geology and soils, hazards and hazardous materials, and noise. So therefore, the mitigation measures were developed to address these issues and reduce the impacts to less than significant. So we were able to do the mitigated negative declaration, and along with that, we have a mitigation monitoring and reporting program that is attached to the resolution for adoption of the environmental review document. And so you can see that as well. Yeah, so I think that covers that. And so now start to wrap up a little bit on the timeline for the project. So we released the mitigated neg deck last year, and it went through the proper public review process. And then for the intersection improvements, we went to TSPC last year as well. The Planning Commission reviewed the project just in May. And so now we're here at the first reading with council. Sorry. Sorry, my bad. So the entitlements are valid for 4 years, a total of 4 years on this project, and construction is estimated to take 26 to 32 months. And these are the construction phasing. We have the mobilization, site demolition, rough grading, horizontal construction, vertical construction, and then the fine grading, which would be the landscaping. And then this also tells you, this is a preliminary of how the project would be staged on the site as well in this image. And so you can see on this image, which I'll go into later in the public comments, that the vehicle traffic is coming in and out of, is being accessed from San Bruno Avenue West. For the public outreach for the project, the applicant hosted 3 neighborhood meetings. The most recent meeting was held virtually in May of 2021. That's right around the time when we were wrapping up with the environmental review. And meeting summaries are attached to the staff report. But a little bit about some of the comments that we received. As I said, the community really wanted to see a signalized intersection. And so in response, we actually did that analysis, which showed that the signalized intersection wasn't warranted. Other issues included privacy from the rear of the building because the development is so high relative to the adjacent surrounding areas. And in response to that, new trees were planted at the rear of the homes that are backing onto the canyon. Other issues included the overall density of the site, and one home was removed from earlier since that meeting. So it was originally 30 and now it is 29. And other issues had to do with the parking. And so the guest parking was increased on the site. And so now you have the 19 guest parking spaces that you see before you. Since that time, we've had the Planning Commission meeting. At the Planning Commission meeting, we had 4 speakers for this project. One speaker is the adjacent neighbor. He spoke in favor of the project and just reminded the city to remember our RENA obligation. There were 3 speakers who spoke, and they spoke in opposition to the project. Reasons for opposition included construction. The neighborhood has been subject to a lot of reconstruction after the blast, and this would be additional construction put upon that neighborhood. So that was a concern that was raised at the Planning Commission meeting. Another question that was raised about the amenity space in the development and whether or not that would be open to the general public, and it would not. That the amenity space would only be for the residents of the subdivision. A comment was made about the landscape being wind resistant since it's so windy up there. And then what the project's impact would be on rush hour traffic at the intersection. And so this traffic study indicated a minimal increase in rush hour traffic. The new stop signs would control the flow of traffic, as I said before, and make it easier for vehicles to enter from Glenview Drive, and also make it easier for people to cross that intersection, which would be a big improvement. And then lastly, the last issue that was raised was the hauling route. And so as I said before in the earlier image, the hauling route will actually be we'll take it from San Bruno Avenue West into the site. And so there would be no construction vehicles going through the adjacent Crestmore neighborhood. But the actual hauling route will be further detailed as they move along in the process, but we know that it won't go through the residential neighborhood. So for this meeting, we mailed out notices to occupants and owners of homes within 600 feet and also to the entire Crestmore neighborhood. This expanded public notice was offered by staff early in the review process to make sure everyone was aware of the project moving forward. And I think I already covered the speakers and the summary of comments. So moving forward, we're going to be looking at, because there's a zoning ordinance amendment, there's 2 ordinances involved with the project, both for the rezoning for the PD and for the development agreement. It does require a second meeting. We're looking potentially at scheduling that in early July, the July council meeting. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you have.
Okay, what we'll do, first, thank you for the presentation. What we'll do is, of course, open it to colleagues for questions on the presentation, then go to the public, and then bring it back. Before go to the rest of my colleagues, could it just be communicated as far as the parking? For example, the guest parking that is proposed versus what the guest parking requirement normally is in San Bruno, et cetera, of concern and stuff.
So, Mr. Mayor, so there are a total of 19 on-site guest parking provided. Michael can go into the code requirement for such development. Please know that we have added also a conditions of approval to prohibit any overnight resident parking in those guest parking areas. Michael, you want to elaborate on the parking requirement?
Sure. So the guest parking requirement for this project would be 3 guest parking spaces. And so they're providing 19, so they have exceeded that requirement.
Okay, thank you. And then you talked about that. I thought that was important to say because I had heard in reading that's significant beyond what is required for San Bruno. And as far as for the individual homes, it's can you just make very clear about what they have the ability to, how many cars they have the ability to park?
Sure. So the code. Thank you. So the code requires 2 spaces per dwelling unit, 2 covered spaces, and each house would have a 2-car garage. It's 420 square feet that would accommodate 2 vehicles. And then in addition to that, each driveway is at least 18 to 20 feet in depth, and those can accommodate 2 additional cars off street. So for a total of 4 for each property.
I appreciate it. Thank you for I knew some of that, but I wanted that to be articulated in case it came up. So, colleagues, questions on the presentation, please? Not seeing any at this time. Why don't we go ahead and move it to members of the public, please, who would like to ask questions or comment on this project. Now would be your opportunity if you could raise your hand so that you can be brought into the meeting, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, first speaker is Antoinette Mcgill. Antoinette, I'm going to let you into the room. Antoinette, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
I wanted to say good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. I am a member of the public, and I wanted to express my wholehearted support for the Glenview Terrace project. In my opinion, it was well thought out, and the project will provide much needed affordable housing to the city of San Bruno. In my opinion, the proposed housing styles would definitely enhance the neighborhood and also provide the needed tax revenue to fund city services. I think any temporary inconveniences have been addressed by the city, and I strongly urge the City Council to take the necessary action to move forward with this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
I will now begin Sergio Giannoni. Sergio, whenever you're ready.
Yes, good evening. Hi, my name is Sergio. I've been involved with real estate, whether it's with renting as a renter, sales, financing, since I was 26 years old. I'm 42 years old now. And there is, never have I seen such a shortage of housing for people, and you can see this when you drive down the streets in the Bay Area with homeless encampments and just folks that are struggling to find housing. It's not just homeless, it's regular folks as well. I 100% support this project. It's definitely moving in the right direction of providing more homes for the Bay Area, as the previous speaker also stated. It is providing tax revenue in the form of property taxes for city services. I definitely agree with the style that they're trying to implement. It looks like it's implementing well with the surrounding community. I'm all for it. I hope that the council can see this project and they can do more projects like this in the community because we definitely need it, and more housing, the better. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Wayne Ho. Wayne, whenever you're ready. Wayne? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you guys?
Hi. Whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm ready. So I am a resident of San Bruno. I live in Mills Park, and I am actually quite excited to see the Glenview Terrace project gets going because I don't think it impacts the traffic too much. As I drive my son over to the San Bruno Avenue to John Muir Elementary, and the traffic is pretty manageable. And I love the fact that they also adding a stop sign on that intersection between Glenview and San Bruno Avenue. That would definitely ease the traffic in that area. I know in United now that they added a Tesla station, it's actually quite busy. So it could alleviate some of that. And I thought the general design of these homes are very modern and quite fitting on the single-family homes on either side of the San Bruno Avenue. So that being said, I'm in a total support of this project, and I love that fact that the developers are actually putting more guest parking space than that was required. Yeah, love to see that in our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
There are no other hands raised. Oh, I just see a couple more just hopped up.
Okay, as you're bringing them in, this will be the last opportunity. So this is the last opportunity before we bring it back and close the public hearing. So if you wish to speak and have not thus far, now is the time. And please, if you could bring them in.
Next speaker is Mark Edgerlin. Mark, can you hear us? Mark?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay,
yes, this is Mark.
Whenever
Yes,
you're ready, thank you.
Yes, thank you for letting me speak. I'd like to let you know that I'm 100% in supportive of this project of Glenview Terrace. I live in South San Francisco, and I used to live in San Bruno. And to see a project like this go up is going to make the community look beautiful. And with the housing shortage that we have, I think that anything that can be added to the housing shortage, I think is a great idea. So anyways, I just wanted to let you know that I'm 100% supportive to this project. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is John Oy. Okay, John, if you're ready, can you hear us? John?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. I actually used to live on Kane Avenue in San Bruno, and I love the neighborhood, and I don't see too many new projects there. Most of them are older building, and to see this Glenwood would be very, very nice project to see in San Bruno. I'm fully support for this development.
Are you concluded, sir?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Are you
Hello?
concluded?
Yes, I concluded, and I look forward to see this project on, and maybe I'm thinking to move there too.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
I don't see any other hands raised. However, I see that there is a comment under Q&A. Would you like me to read that comment?
Since the mechanism is on and somebody has taken that time and they have not spoken, yes, please.
Okay, the comment is from Bruce Ehrman. Besides the impact on Glenview drivers, did a traffic study assess the impact of a four-way stop on the potential for backup on Skyline Drive north and south, turning to San Bruno Drive east? It already gets backed up significantly for northbound drivers turning right at rush hour. very narrow right turn lane, and potential for rear-end collisions. Perhaps we can commit to a second study after project completion. And that is the complete comment.
Thank you very much. All right, being no other speakers, if we could bring it back to council, please. And I'll just read the another one that came in. It says, I don't know how to sign up for speaking, but it's Mr. Patel, and I am in support of this project. Okay, with that, that will conclude all public hearing. I'll bring it back to council and see if I can have action from council to close public hearing, please.
The mayor, I'll move to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Motion second in Hamilton. Marty Medina, roll call, please.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mason?
Aye.
Mayor Rico Medina?
Aye. Okay, thank you. With the comments that I had heard, it was one that was specific to the four-way stop. I know council members can articulate it and bring it forward in their comments, and I know there's additional questions, statements. Councilmember Hamilton to start.
So I just got a couple of things. I appreciate the public comments. I appreciate the work done by the Planning Commission in approving this project unanimously, and I of course appreciate the hard work of staff to bring this before us. This is one of those projects where they really went the extra mile to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and really be responsive to concerns from the neighbors and address those concerns in the project in concrete ways. Regarding the four-way stop, having the four-way stop there will be a huge improvement, especially for pedestrians. It's difficult as a driver to make a left turn from Glenview onto San Bruno Avenue in either direction currently, so that's going to improve that at all times of day. And it can be very difficult to cross on foot across San Bruno Avenue there at all times of day. So having those high visibility four-way stop there is going to be and high visibility crosswalks is going to be a huge improvement. I do have a similar concern that was noted in the public comment about potential queuing eastbound. It would really only be one time a day, which would be the evening rush hour of cars coming off of Highway 35. And I did ask this question during our 2x2s on this project, and the traffic study did address that, and it came through that would not occur. And can staff confirm that once the project is in place or once that four-way stop is in place, we would obviously continue to monitor that intersection and make adjustments if needed, correct?
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Absolutely, we will continue to monitor that intersection and can authorize a traffic count at that intersection after construction. We probably give it a little time and let drivers get used to the new configuration, of course, and then the assessment.
Great, thank you for confirming that. Also, I just realized as I was heaping praise all around, I should also mention the TSPC who weighed in on this project and this intersection as well. So I am fully in support of this project and am excited to welcome the neighbors into Crestmore. Thank you.
Are there comments or questions from colleagues? As looking for other hands, I do want to go back in time and staff, if you know, back in 2006, Was there not some project that was brought forward for consideration for housing at that site?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we mentioned in the presentation that in 2006, a portion of the current site was entitled for 16 townhomes. However, for some odd reason, the construction never took place.
Okay, just I know there's been thought of that, and I know I've been here a while, so I remember the gas station. Vice Mayor Mason. Vice Mayor Mason, you're on mute. If okay, we're going to go to Councilmember Medina, and then we'll go back to Vice Mayor Mason. You're on mute, Marty.
Of course I was. But thank you nonetheless. And I want to thank all staff and for being out there to get the community's input into having more parking than normal. The guest parking is a nice surprise. I did get a text earlier today, and I forwarded that text to the city clerk and from a resident that lives on Glenview and expressing his concerns about the traffic, but especially during construction. I heard that the traffic route is coming off of San Bruno Avenue. However, how do you really enforce that? Whether it's for workers or for delivery. So that's the question. I don't know the answer. And the interesting point that only a resident that's been around there for a while would be able to note would be that coyotes apparently kind of use that area that kind of, they get around the fences no problem, but to access Crestmore Canyon. And the concern was, if you build a neighborhood there, then has anyone thought of, like, where are those coyotes, how are those coyotes going to get to Crestmore Canyon other than probably through somebody's backyard or on San Bruno Avenue? Those are the comments primarily from the resident. My question for staff is, I want to have a little bit more of an understanding of, there's a $400,000 community benefit. There's development impact fees. Does the four-way intersection with stop signs, does that work get paid by the developer, or is that money coming out of the community benefit? Who's paying for the four-way stop sign improvement?
City Hall?
Sure, but Councilmember Medina, the developer will pay for the four-way stop. That is not a part of the community benefit payment or development impact fees.
Excellent. I have tried to make a left turn many times from Glenview onto San Bruno Avenue, and that stop sign definitely is needed. I believe in the 2x2 meeting that I had with staff about this project, how short, or what kind of vehicle traffic was needed to have an intersection, and how short in the numbers did the intersection prove to be?
Councilmember Medina, so I spoke with the traffic engineer after our meeting, and he looked at the numbers. It's not as simple to say how much it deviates from what would have been to meet it, but he said it wasn't close. So,
it wasn't close, okay.
Close.
So substantial, that you need a lot more traffic there for an intersection.
Yeah.
Excellent. It's going to be nice to see something there other than that vacant land that has that fencing around it. The church has been kind of abandoned for a number of years. I understand that there are some concerns in the neighborhood about construction and how long it's going to take. But there really is little that, what could the city do really to move the project along and speed things up for the developer? I'm curious of what answer to give a resident. I wonder if staff can take a shot at that. To minimize the impact that the construction has been going on there for a while, and a while ago, and here it comes again, and just some assurances on how it's going to be handled.
Mr. Medina, if you don't mind, can Ms. Medina add on to your question?
You're the mayor.
We're all equal here.
Go ahead.
No. What it was is just on what you were saying is that, you know, I'm sensitive to the time that it took, and the construction and the roads and the dirt and the dust and all of those things. And I think that's what Councilmember Medina is alluding to, is there is still that sensitivity and there is still that concern. And I think, I know there's steps being taken, but what else has been, can be, and to expound on Mr. Medina's comment. Thank you. Yes, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Medina, Councilmember Mason, in response to your question. The City Council has entitlement and zoning authority. Unfortunately, what the City Council doesn't have the power to do is force developers to build on a certain timetable. And so we saw that with the prior project that was approved in the early 2000s. Now, what you do have is the ability to put a time limit on the development agreement, and this development agreement does have a 4-year time frame. There will certainly be various phases of the project, and what residential home developers like to do is build projects that they know that they could sell at a rate that once the project is completed doesn't sit vacant for too long. And so we do expect that to be the case. Exactly any tools that the City Council may have to expedite that development, there really aren't many, to just candidly, to be honest. You have entitlement authority and the time limit you provide on your DA. And the developer will build subject to the market and financing.
And maybe just the other side of it was the dirt or the cleaning up after, or there'll be some person they can call like they do in other projects. Fair?
Absolutely. There will be a sign up with contact information for the developer as well as the city's building inspection division. So there will be resources for neighbors to call.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Mason, then we'll go to, oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Medina, you're probably not concluded.
Yeah, just something pretty short. I guess there's a history of projects that kind of get entitled and then have been put up for sale, and that's a right that a developer has. Do we have any knowledge of how willing this developer is going to proceed to actually start building? Do we have any clue?
I'll respond to that, and I'll turn it over to Interim City Attorney David Snow. We do not have any information, but I would actually caution a discussion on that tonight. It's really not a germane factor in the entitlement actions that are before you, and so I would just be cautious about having those discussions here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I'm not sure I have much to add on that, other than I would point out there are certain assignment provisions in the development agreement that are intended to ensure that the city would be protected in the event of an assignment.
Understood. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Mason.
Yeah, I just want to apologize again. My camera's not on because I'm in a very unstable Wi-Fi area. Can you hear me right now, Mayor?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to ask whether, first of all, whether the streets, who will be responsible for the maintenance of the streets, including the crosswalks?
To the mayor, in response to Councilmember Vice Mayor's question, within the development, they will be private streets and private sidewalks maintained by the HOA.
Okay, great, thank you. Just thinking, staff, I know this has been long coming for this space. When we talk about thoughtful development, that includes the location, how it's used currently and its best use, who owns it, what partnerships or conversations are available that place San Bruno in the best position to remain a quality place to live. So here we have a private owner who wishes to develop the property and has worked with the city and residents for a couple years now to arrive where we are. I have received complaints about the eyesore of this site and asked when this project would move forward. Obviously the project was, there was another iteration at the time in the past, as Mayor Medina's touched on. But the designs presented are desirable. They'll add to the supply of housing, contribute to the city and property taxes and development impact fees, and even provide more parking than required, which I think most of the council is finding more and more rare. Being that the location is currently not utilized at all, the appeal of a pocket park and open space available to all residents of San Bruno is inviting as well. I look forward to seeing this development come to fruition and thank you for honest feedback, developers and city staff for acknowledging them and acting on them, and those who called in to voice their opinion. I will be supporting this item tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just want for clarification that the pocket park on that development is not for public use. It is for the use of the development only. I just don't want misunderstanding. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor. It will be a pocket park developed and maintained by the HOA.
But is it for everybody in the public or just those within the HOA?
For use by HOA members.
Only. Okay. Just, it was articulated otherwise. I want to make sure we don't give the wrong expectation. Councilmember Salazar.
Thank you. I just wanted also to acknowledge the concerns that we heard from the community, and there are members of that community that are still feeling the impacts of the gas line explosion and the years of construction that followed. And I don't want to minimize their concern, and so I just wanted to acknowledge that that their message was heard. This is a project that has a lot of benefits, both to that community and to the city as a whole. And looking at those benefits, it would be difficult to turn down a project like this. I know that being near construction is not a lot of fun. I'm less than a block away right now from a major construction project, and I can attest that it's not the best situation to be in, but there is that that hope that when this project is done, we'll have something of great value that will definitely benefit the city. And so I just wanted to offer that just so that the public knows that we're not looking past those concerns, but we do have to weigh both the concerns and benefits. And overall, this project is a good project, and we've heard reassurances both here in this meeting and in other briefings that we've had that make me confident that this developer is going to do the best to minimize the impact and to make this project not only compatible, but that the process will be as smooth as possible and won't necessarily drag on longer than it needs to. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, Mr. Councilmember Salazar is correct. I've heard the same concerns about enough. That neighborhood and those that remained or rebuilt, it was a lot to deal with for a long time. And so it is also important to me that be heard and understood, and I believe it is, but that we will be there as well through this process. With that, there are many items as far as to take care of. You heard Lapita read them all. I've got good news and bad news on this. Oh, I'm sorry, City Hall.
Mr. Mayor, just one correction. So in your packet, attachment 7, the Affordable Housing Plan, Exhibit 2, the housing plan inadvertently show a total of 5 units. We want to make you aware there's only a total of 4 affordable units. So we'll be updating our affordable housing plan with the accurate plan unit count. And also, just so you know, when you are taking a motion on floor, one of the council members would have to make that correction into motion, and also a reminder that you could take all of the recommended actions in.
Yes. Okay. That's where, thank you for the correction. I didn't know that part, so I appreciate that. That's where my good news, bad news was coming in, and the director started to allude to it. We can take one motion, but to take the one motion with the added correction, as the director indicated, everything needs to be read in its entirety, as Lapita did. And unless I'm incorrect on what I just said, interim city attorney, you can wave at me, or if I'm okay with what I just stated. You don't need to say anything if I'm okay.
I think you could just, I think, Mr. Mayor, I think you could just specify that when the motion is being taken, that it's the resolution only, that the resolution would be modified as indicated by Director Wu.
Correct, but what I'm stating is all the verbiage that Lapita had read needs to be read into the motion. Is that correct?
I don't think it needs to be repeated.
Okay, all right. I stand corrected from what I had read earlier. Okay, with that correction that Director Wu, which was the 4 units, affordable, not 5, which needs to be read in. Councilmember Hamilton.
I'd like to make a motion adopting the resolutions specified earlier with the amendment that was specified by Director Wu to the housing plan.
Second.
Motion seconded. Hold on, please. Motion seconded. Hamilton, Medina. On the question, I'm going to turn it to staff. Oh.
If you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I just want to correct the motion. There's also 2 ordinances that were included, so it would be all of those actions that were read by the by Lapita.
And that's why I was saying to include. So there are 2 ordinances on the document. One is to introduce, read the title only, and waive the first reading of an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance to rezone APN 019-042-170. And there's also another one that's introduced, the read by title only and waive the first waive further reading of the ordinance approving a development agreement pursuant to City Resolution 1986-77. And hopefully we've included enough verbiage.
Mayor, I'd like to
no, we're going to keep Attorney Snow.
Oh, no, I don't think I have anything more to add. I think Councilmember Hamilton is going to make it clear that it's adopt the resolutions, introduce the 2 ordinances, but as with title as read. And I think that's where he was going, so I'll let him continue.
Okay.
I would like to amend my motion to further include that we are to introduce the 2 ordinances as listed.
As listed, and I did read, and will the seconder concur to that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so we have a motion and seconded. Hamilton, Medina, roll call, please.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mason?
Aye.
Mayor Rigo Medina?
Aye.
Yes, my voice did not change. It is me. That is a 5-0 approval. And with that, we will go on to item B, please.
Item 8B, adopt resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a power purchase agreement with Peninsula Clean Energy to deploy a solar photovoltaic system on the San Bruno Recreation and Aquatic Center should the city manager determine adequate cost efficiency or other community benefits associated with the agreement.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of Council. My name is Matt Lee. I'm the Public Works Director. I'm here tonight with David Freibush and Rafael Reyes from Peninsula Clean Energy to discuss the energy service contract to install solar panels at the Recreation and Aquatic Center. This is our public hearing. You may have seen some of this before, and so I'm going to go by as quickly as possible. But I wanted to start first with the background on the solar panels at the RAC. They're initially designed to include solar at the facility, but they had to be valued engineered out due to the cost. But the facility was to be built to be solar ready. The estimated cost for the solar panels was in the ballpark of about $1.2 to $1.3 million. Since then, the Recreation and Aquatic Center entered into construction. Staff has been diligently trying to identify ways to install a solar panel facility at the RAC without any initial capital investment. Next slide, please. Staff was able to identify a few vendors and organizations. The one that staff has looked to partner with is Peninsula Clean Energy. Peninsula Clean Energy Authority is a community choice energy aggregator and San Mateo County's official electricity provider. Formed in 2016, Peninsula Clean Energy is a joint powers authority consisting of the County of San Mateo and all 20 of its towns and cities, as well as the City of Los Banos and Merced County. Peninsula Clean Energy provides cleaner, greener electricity at lower rates than the incumbent investor-owned utility with PG&E. Peninsula Clean Energy plans for and secures commitments from a diverse portfolio of energy-generating resources to reliably serve the electric energy requirements of its customers over the near, mid, and long-term plan horizons. Peninsula Clean Energy's programs include advancing the adoption of electric vehicles and transitioning to building fossil fuel uses to lower carbon emissions. Next slide, please. And so the Peninsula Clean Energy has a government solar program, which is an aggregate procurement of solar systems for public facilities. The portfolio includes 14 sites over 12 public agencies, which include cities and San Mateo County, included in that have council resolutions or authorizing their city manager or county manager to execute a power purchase agreement if they follow the evaluation of the RFP responses and proposed pricing. Peninsula Clean Energy can offer a PPA that provides financial and community benefits. The RFP for the government solar program and solicitation of vendors was posted on June 20th, 2022. Next slide, please. To date, the government solar program has these participants. All of them have been approved by City Council to enter into agreements. Next slide, please. Specifics about the power purchase agreement itself. The power purchase agreement is adapted from the solar energy industry standard for commercial and industrial power purchase agreement contracts. However, the city will still have special counsel specializing in PPAs to review the contract itself. The contract will be a 20-year term, and it will include maintenance and operations as part of that 20-year term, and there will be a minimum solar production guarantee in terms of the rates of energy production that will be provided to the city, and there will be a specified rate for energy generated by the solar panel system. The end-of-term options of the agreement itself, there are a couple. The first one would be for the city to determine to purchase the equipment at a fair market value as required by tax laws, or to request Peninsula Clean Energy to remove the system, or to explore other contract options such as an extension to the PPA. Next slide. This slide you've seen at previous meetings. In terms of the assumptions that we provided with the electricity savings and this solar power generated electricity, the city will save over the lifetime or over the 20-year terms of the contract approximately $1.4 million in electricity savings in addition to the initial capital investment. The current timeline for this project would be in August. It would be a RP solicitation and proposal evaluation, and the cities would review the power purchase agreement. And in September, there would be an execution of the power purchase agreement with the city attorney sign off and city manager signature. In November of 2022, Peninsula Clean Energy will execute a contract with the equipment providers as part of that RFP. Once they've solicited all the cities that decide to enter into the agreement. And then in January 2023 is when there will be a coordination to install solar panels at the Recreation Aquatic Center. Slide, please. And so the recommended action for tonight is for the council to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a power purchase agreement with Peninsula Clean Energy to deploy a solar voltaic system should the manager determine adequate cost efficiency or other community benefits associated with the agreement. I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Questions from colleagues? And then we'll open it to the public. Seeing no questions at this time on the presentation, are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this item?
No hands are currently raised.
Thank you very much. We will bring it back to the council for comments and discussion or action. Councilor Medina.
Yes, Mayor Medina, this is fantastic. As most of the council know, or all the council know, I'm on the board of directors as the city's representative on Peninsula Clean Energy. This organization has been doing tremendous work, and I really want to thank our city manager, Grogan, and PCE staff for this work. It took a while to get here, and I'm thrilled that we're going to have a new building with solar on it. So just wanted to thank everybody for their work. Thank you.
Any other comments? Vice Mayor Mason.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on an earlier comment, and the city manager and I spoke of this. I just want to put it on the public record that the contract be reviewed by an attorney that specializes in these areas. And if we could just get that commitment, prior to obviously signing anything, that'd be great.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Hamilton.
I just want to echo Councilmember Medina's comments. This is a great project. It's pretty much a no-brainer because we read it's important to put solar on this building, and this is a successful program from a trusted partner in the community in Peninsula Clean Energy. So I'm very much in support, and thank you, Director Lee, for the presentation, and thank you to everyone involved for bringing this project to us.
I'm not seeing any hands up, but I do want to go back to the question the Vice Mayor asked, because I don't know that that's determined to be done, if that's something that, anyway. Interim Attorney?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Medina and Vice Mayor Mason. We will find a attorney who specializes in PPAs and have them review the terms prior to the city entering into the agreement.
Okay, thank you very much. Vice Mayor Mason.
Great, thank you, and we look forward to having solar. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilmember Medina, any person want to introduce the resolution?
Go for it, Marty. Sure. I'm pleased to make a motion to adopt the resolution. And Mr. Mayor, do we have to read the whole thing?
Hey, for what Lapita read, this is nothing. I'm sure you can simplify it, but
sure, I can read. I just want to make sure I save time, but if I need to read it, I'll read the whole thing. To adopt the resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a power purchase agreement with Peninsula Clean Energy to deploy a solar photovoltaic system on the San Bruno Recreation and Aquatic Center should the city manager determine adequate cost efficiency or other community benefits associated with the agreement.
I will second that.
Motion seconded. Marty Medina, Hamilton, roll call, please.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mason,
Aye.
Mayor Rico Medina.
Passes 5-0. Again, thank you to everyone. Now we'll move on to item number 9, comments from council members. There's just one item that I have on the under this category, just in regards to Measure K funds being awarded of $227,564 to Life moves for a 1-year funding for a 2 full-time homeless outreach team, aka HOT team, case managers. That was done at a Board of Supervisors meeting, which I was there virtually to speak and to encourage the board to once again support that. I want to thank Supervisor Pine for bringing this forward. He's done this since 2020, and so that is very much appreciated. As we are dealing with that, what it does is about 3/4 of the time is for San Bruno, and then it's about 75%, I'll say, and then 25% for the city of South San Francisco, and that's hopefully to work collaboratively and in trying to reach out as they do and try to provide services for those. I certainly want to acknowledge and thank the supervisor for once again doing that. We began a few years ago and asked for his assistance on this. And I'm thinking the colleagues are okay with the city sending the thank you letter to the supervisor for that continued support. And I think I'll see if my other colleagues have any other comments they'd like to make. Please.
I got a couple things, Mr. Mayor.
You go ahead, Mr. Medina.
First of all, wishing everybody a great 4th. Be safe. There's a baseball tournament, the Dale Wilson baseball tournament down at City Park. It should be a lot of fun. There's at least three San Bruno baseball teams that I'm aware of. And this year's baseball program in San Bruno had 570 ball players, which is much higher than the average of 400 that they've had. So baseball is big and back and better than ever. So a couple more B's in there. Best wishes. And on a little bit more somber note, just wanted to let everyone know I received my second booster, COVID booster today. It was much easier than getting my first booster. I did, which was in December. I did get COVID in January. It was very mild compared to what I heard from other people's experiences. Of the 40 plus family members, my nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews, nearly everyone has contacted COVID and overcame it. The overwhelming majority of them were vaccinated, and fortunately, the symptoms were rather mild. So, just wanted to encourage everyone, if you can get the booster, I strongly encourage you to go get it. It's much easier, and I believe in it. So, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Mason.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I attended about 2 weeks ago an event put on by Kaiser. It was an informational event regarding the fentanyl and opioid crisis happening in our country. It was very, very, very informative, very scary, very daunting. But what was nice is that in sharing that we have a pilot program coming out of San Bruno, the head speaker did request to meet with those in San Bruno who are involved. And I have informed the city manager of this request. and just really something that I think we should all be paying attention to within our city, within our county, and what efforts are being taken to try to mitigate the problems. And one of them is definitely and clearly education at a young age. So I just wanted to share that and thank Kaiser for hosting this event and getting specialists to speak with all of us on what's really happening and sharing the data. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Councilmember Hamilton. You.
Sorry about that. Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge some recent sad news. We actually learned of this news immediately after the end of our last council meeting, so this is almost exactly 2 weeks old. But still very important to share to those who may not know that local artist Ruth Waters passed away a couple of weeks ago, and her contributions to the arts and to our community cannot be measured. Our condolences go out to her family, her many students, and her colleagues. And there is a art exhibit that has been set up in her honor at the AZ Gallery in Penfran. That's near JCPenney on the upper level, where you can go and see some of her work, see work from many of the local artists that she inspired, and to learn about Ruth's impact on our county and beyond. So I encourage everyone to visit that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And as far as last Friday, which I thought was interesting, is I went to East Palo Alto to the Boys and Girls Club, which we had our Council of Cities, which I represented the city of San Bruno. And it's very interesting to see what they have done and how they've grown with mid and then expanding and now coming to the north, and how they are expanding and growing at such a pace that there obviously is a need. But it's always good to be with colleagues and to go to the different cities and learn. And the CEO, the co-CEO now, is a person that has done this for 20 years and is just an inspiration. And I can just tell why things are working and things are growing, and it's thanks to the gentleman named Peter. So with that said, colleagues, keep in mind that we are going back into closed session for labor negotiations pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Our city manager has sent a link similar to the other one. And so with that said, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting to the next regular city council meeting, which will be held on July 12, 2022 at 7 p.m. And I wish everybody a happy, healthy, safe holiday over the 4th. And please take care of each other. Meeting adjourned.